Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Same Old Arsenal podcast. Tonight, as you can see, the boys are back. Hi, Chris. How are you doing after your bout of COVID?
I am all right. I have survived. I've come out the other end having just about every single symptom possible: nausea, the loss of taste, fatigue, all of that rubbish. But as of yesterday, I started to get better, which was helpful because I was able to watch a lovely old Arsenal game, lovely, controlled and easy Arsenal victory.
We don't often say that, do we? But
Yeah.
glad you're feeling better. Cookie, hello, my lovely. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. I mean, to echo what Chris said yesterday, just made it the perfect Saturday. Really, if Carlsberg did Saturdays, that'd be it. Absolutely lovely.
That
Not
was
just
my
from an Arsenal
tweet
point of view,
yesterday.
but City result, United result, couldn't have asked for a better day.
Yeah, now that I tweeted that about Saturdays in Carlsberg. And we have a special guest. We're treating you all tonight. So below me is the lovely Anthony Gale, son of Tony Gale. And he was with us back in July because was also Declan Rice's youth team coach. So Anthony, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again. Much appreciated. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so are we. So are we. We've got a lot to talk about. I mean, obviously, Declan Rice will be one of those topics, but we do need to start with yesterday. I gather you and Cooks and Chris, you weren't at the game like me, watched it. Did you all manage to get a stream and everything?
Just about.
Yeah, we had one of those where it was paused, then you had to watch it. We were a minute behind and stuff like that. It's not easy watching a 3 o'clock game in the UK, but yeah, no, listen, I mean, I said last week against Spurs, I didn't feel right. Outside the ground, inside the ground, it just didn't feel right. Nothing sort of went for us anyway. Yesterday, I felt a lot of things went for us. Yes, you make your own luck, but at the end of the day, I look at it like this. Sometimes you need the rub of the green. I think we got that, Chris, with especially Saka's first goal. So just take us through the lineup and how did you feel at the beginning and everything?
I will do that, but before I do that, you'll know how much this is going to pain me. I'm going to pop a comment in the chat. I feel like I need to shave my head now. Right, let's sort that out.
Does someone think you look like Cedric?
Yeah.
And just to let you know, he can't stand Cedric.
Please, for the love of God, take that comment back. But anyway, right.
Well, why can't you stand Cedric? Why is this?
Oh my God!
Because he's
No,
not a very good
So,
football
should I not get him started? Sorry,
player.
bad question.
He's not a very good football player.
I'll be quiet.
We'll leave it at that, mate. But in terms of the starting lineup, I was quite pleased because I think in Arteta's press conference, we were on Friday, we're probably all a little bit nervous of all of the injuries that we were going to have. As of that press conference, Declan Rice hadn't trained. Saliba was a doubt. Saka hadn't trained. We had question marks over Trossard. So I was thinking to myself, he's patching up this team. So, don't risk them if they're not fully fit. But then I think it was Friday evening, there was some videos that came out as the team arrived at their hotel base. And all of those players, Saliba and Rice, and I think even Trossard, they were all sort of spotted. And so for me, that was a bit of a sigh of relief. But then to see them in from the start, we're not experts in terms of how fit these players are. We are certainly not in the know. So from my perspective, it was like, do you know what? They must have done their checks and balances in terms of the fitness, and it's got to be all right, hasn't it? She's muted herself. So I'll ask Amanda's question for her. Cookie, what did you think?
I'm on mute.
What did I think, mate? Great game. Yeah, really, really good. I was more than happy with the lineup, apart from maybe one change. I would have really liked to have seen Reiss Nelson in for Eddie Nketiah. That said, I do think Eddie had a good game. I've seen really mixed opinions on social media, but I thought he was one of the positives from yesterday. But I just felt after the Brentford game, Reiss Nelson was one of the guys that really stood out. And I just think we're a little bit more balanced. I think that front three we had yesterday, although I don't think it's poor and it quite easily dispatched Bournemouth, I think we're a lot more balanced when we've got, two natural wingers. We've got Jesus through the middle, where I think he's quite clearly the most dangerous. And we saw what he did against PSV when he was playing in that centre forward role. obviously against Spurs and against Bournemouth, he just wasn't as effective and as potent as he was. So, yeah, I mean, apart from that, I mean, the lineup was perfect. I thought Rice was unbelievable. I'm sure we'll get into all of this. But, yeah, all in all, very pleased.
It was interesting because when you're talking about those players, they were at the hotel I was at when I was in Bournemouth 2 weeks ago. I recognised the car park and I was like, I've missed them by 2 weeks. I'd have been strolling around the hotel. Could you imagine me seeing all the Arsenal team coming in? It would have been incredible. But thank God we had all these fit players, and that we didn't know that we were fit. Last week it was like an injury list from hell. It was getting worse each day. Obviously Declan was taken off last weekend. Obviously,
Yeah.
such a great injury record at West Ham, and then he's gone off. So it was all good to see. But it started off well, didn't it, boys? I mean, and I know you've only seen the goals, so we'll come to you in a moment. But Chris, it was like, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Bournemouth, but it was like men against boys, wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what, though? The first 5 minutes was interesting because for the first 5 minutes, it felt like our pass distribution was a little bit off. I think it was Saliba with one. There was Zinchenko with a couple. I think there might have been Erdegaard with one. The ball wasn't sticking for the first 5 minutes. I was a little bit nervous about how the game would start off. But after about 5-6 minutes, and that particularly with Zinchenko too, they started to find their rhythm, find their passing lanes, and also the movement started to be brilliant. The way that we were popping the ball around so quickly, like they were all in tune with each other. And for the first 5 minutes, it didn't feel like that, but then afterwards it did. And we scored on 17 minutes, so we didn't have to wait long for that first goal.
No, it was again. This is what I was saying about Rubber the Green. Comes off the bar, Saka's there, heads it in. Cookie, we're 1-0 up. And you just had a good vibe, didn't you? Like last week, what I was saying was I didn't have a good vibe at the Emirates. I didn't feel it for Spurs, but I was feeling it for then. So we then, proceed into the first half. It really is all us. I wasn't even stressed, which is really strange for me, especially for an away game. And then we get a penalty for Eddie, don't we? Eddie goes down, and I thought straight away I didn't even need to look at VAR. And yes, we will be talking about VAR later. We have to. But Cooks, it was a nailed-on penalty for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, this is what I was saying earlier. I thought Eddie had a good game, and say what you like about him, he makes things happen. I do think he was poor against Spurs, but he really responded in this game, and he won the penalty away at Crystal Palace. He won the penalty yesterday, and he's just so fast. I think that's one area of his game that we kind of overlook a little bit. He has got so much pace about him, and if he's going to get into those areas, it doesn't really matter if he's putting the ball in the back of the net or not. If he's winning us penalties, creating opportunities for other people, very useful player to have. I still don't think he falls into that elite level centre forward category, and arguably neither does Gabriel Jesus, but they're two very good players in their own right. And yeah, I think it's actually good to see them playing together, going and contradicting what I said before, to actually see them working in a system where, okay, maybe you lose a bit of what Jesus does, but to see those two, working off each other, I think it's, it's good to see Arsenal being flexible, being a bit more experimental, maybe, even though that's not always a good thing with us. But it's a great one penalty from Eddie and coolly dispatched by Martin Erdegaard. And from there, it was just smooth sailing. Great time to win the penalty.
So as and you're a football coach, with these penalties nowadays, I don't think you could do this little dance up and then do it. I thought you had to do one continuous run, if you know what I mean. But I was watching both our penalties yesterday, and they both did that.
It's the forward momentum. So as you're going into the ball, as long as it's a continuation of momentum into the ball, then obviously the penalty is given. The interesting thing for me as I said, I saw the goals yesterday, and I think I've got to start by saying when you score 4 goals in the Premier League against anyone, it's impressive. And on top of that, when you keep a clean sheet, I think it's a statement in itself. To score 4 goals away from home, keep a clean sheet. I know we're talking about maybe the bits that could have gone better and those little bits that can be addressed. But if you look at your contenders, Manchester City, they're winning games as well at the moment. And I don't think we'll see the best of them until the new year with Kevin De Bruyne out, Rodri is suspended for your game in a couple of weeks, isn't he? Bernardo Silva's out. I think it's a perfect time for Arsenal to really make a statement and really go on a run of games where before the new year you can put the pressure on them. But going back to the penalties, it was an interesting one because I was listening to it on the radio because the third one was given to Havertz, wasn't it, to take?
Yeah, we'll get there in a second. We have to go and order.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to apologise. I was getting excited because I got an opportunity to speak. Sorry, guys.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine.
I'll get back in line.
I have a book. I have my book.
I've got a question, actually. If we can just jump in just for Anthony as a quick one, if I remember, because I'll only forget. So we're sort of 7 games into the season. I watch a bit of West Ham, but not a lot of them. And I'm presuming, I don't know whether it's because of obviously your connections to Rice and stuff like that, whether or not you've watched a bit more Arsenal than I've watched of West Ham. What's your perceptions of us after the first 7 games? And the reason I ask that question is because amongst us as fans, it feels like the conversation we're going to have today around the way we played is we clicked yesterday. I mean, Bournemouth probably helped that. And we clicked against PSV and they probably helped that. But other than that, it doesn't feel like we've clicked. What do you see from the outside looking in at us?
It's a good question. I mean, I'll come on the show before, didn't I? And said, I mean, obviously being a West Ham fan, and a West Ham fan has been very much because of my upbringing with my dad being there for 10 years when I was younger. Hence why I'm claret and blue. I wouldn't have had any other choice really in my household, to be honest. So coming on and admitting that I like Arsenal and their style of play, I might get shot if I go to the London Stadium. But it's you know, I enjoy it because your style is energised. I'm enthused by it. I like the energy. I like the youth. I like the tempo and the quality of your passing. And, I remember Dad saying when they won the Premier League with Blackburn, it was he was coaching me as a player, actually, when I was playing non-league. And he said, do you know what? In a season, it may click 6 or 7 times and you may play really well. But it's the games when you're not playing so well. It's about getting results. And it's about getting 3 points on the board, and it's about and I think with Arsenal last season, where you've had that experience now of a run-in, and being involved in that run-in last year with Arteta and with this new group. I'm not saying you haven't been in one before because you had the Invincibles and that brilliant team with Arsene Wenger, but with this group of players now, and the youth of it and the energy of it, to have had that experience last year, now going into this year, you're going to play against your Bournemouths and not necessarily play as well, but score 4 goals. I mean, I looked at a stat yesterday and I think it was Saka has been involved in 31 of your last 41 goals, which is something, it's an incredible stat, and it's one that you as Arsenal fans can be really enthused about. A young English player being so influential within a Premier League side. So, I mean, from the outside looking in, it's a young side, it's an energised side, it's a front foot side, and it's a team that you'd put the TV on to watch and enjoy. It's I hate to admit this, but I don't necessarily enjoy our style of play, West Ham. We're winning games, and we are where we are. But I think without the quality of James Ward-Prowse, that might be slightly different, because his set play delivery has been exceptional this season, and his contributions from set plays. But the answer to that is I enjoy watching you. I like the youth, like the enthusiasm, and just like the attitude that these players give their manager and the love and respect. It really seems like a unit, not just that, but the fans, the club, the players. It seems like it's really coming together.
And also,
Amanda, sorry, I'll just jump in just on Anthony's point, then I'll hand back to you, Amanda. But when he was talking about Saka and the goal contributions this season alone, so he's played 8 games, 7 Premier League, 1 Champions League, 4 goals in the Premier League, 1 goal in the Champions League, 2 assists in the Premier League, 1 goal, 1 assist in the Champions League. He's got 8 contributions, goals and assists in 8 games.
Wow.
Incredible. He's that sort of player, isn't he? I love him. But when Anthony came on the show, one of the first things I said to you, wasn't it? We've just signed Declan Rice. What are we going to get for 105 million quid? And you told us what we were going to get for 105 million quid. And you weren't wrong. If anything, you didn't elaborate enough of how much of a wonderful player he is. And I do want to come to him, but something you just said about the unity is what you just mentioned about Havertz's penalty. So let's just go to that. So we come out second half. It was a case of how many we're going to get and can we keep a clean sheet? Because obviously we've got the Raya Ramsdale situation going on. It's clear to see now that Raya's his first choice. I'm still a little bit confused because it wasn't the sort of position I was looking at to think we definitely need to replace him. I'm not sure what's gone on there. I suppose the fact that he did want Raya before Ramsdale came in, but it is where it is, and we have to trust the manager. It's a little bit of a weird situation because none of us really understand. But then Ødegaard gets fouled, and Saka picks the ball up. I think Ødegaard had a word and gives it to Havertz. Is that how you remember it yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, there was a clear discussion with Jesus and Ødegaard as well. So,
Right.
I mean, I think at that point in the game, anyone that wanted a goal was kind of queuing up for that penalty. And I think anyone could have, quite rightly taken it. But, you referenced the unity in the squads. I think it's indicative of where this team, this club, this fan base is at the minute, that we were so happy for it to be given to Kai Havertz. And, first and foremost, for him to actually put it away, given everything that's happened this season for him, given how bereft of confidence he is. It's no easy feat. So I was absolutely buzzing that he got the ball in the back of the net, and you could just see from his celebration, he just didn't quite know what to do with himself. So he looked relieved. He looked, absolutely ecstatic that he'd got the ball in the back of the net. And I just hope that this is the start of him kicking on his Arsenal career. But at that point in the game, I'm sure we'll go on to it as well. I really wish we'd have made a few more earlier substitutions because Saka, at that point, we knew he was coming into this game with a bit of a knock. We've got a massive game coming up in the Champions League on Tuesday. We've got another massive game next Sunday against Man City. Please just take off Bukayo Saka that bit earlier.
It's in my notes. Arteta's in-game management. We're going to discuss that in a moment. And I've got Saka because I fully agree with you. So the reason I wanted to say that, Anthony, is because the unity is incredible. When Havertz scored, every team member went up to him. Ødegaard pushes him towards the Arsenal fans because it isn't really the match-going fans that are criticising Havertz. It's more online. It's more. I'm not going to give oxygen to the certain people that are doing it. I think also players take time to settle in different teams as well, and I've got no issue with him, weirdly. I mean, yes, it would be nice to see a little bit more, but I found against Spurs that he was really trying hard to score, or was it yesterday? And I think what that brings is that desperation. So I think he scored his first goal for us now. Hopefully he can kick on from that, Chris. Hopefully he can get that elephant off his shoulder. No, it's not. It's monkey off the shoulder.
Monkey.
Isn't it?
You don't want to get an elephant on your shoulder. That's going to be really
elephant in the room, monkey off the shoulder.
Yeah, we certainly don't want that on his back when he's running.
But I think he felt like it was very heavy for him. But all of a sudden now, and I want to mention this, and I also very remiss of me to say good evening to everybody in the chat room as well. Thank you also for being here. Is that our fans yesterday from minute 1 till 97 minutes or whatever time it ended were so loud that the guy on my stream, who I found out was called Gary Taphouse, said he's never heard fans like it. It's the loudest he's heard in years. And all of a sudden a new Havertz song came out. Have you two heard it? I've not stopped all day in my head. It's driving me insane.
Yes.
It's so
Carl's
catchy.
got it in the chat.
Oh, if you put it
Carl's put it in the chat for us.
It's brilliant. And I think, and what's happened is when someone comes into our team now, we all support, where it wasn't like that many years ago. There was a lot of I can't even get my words tonight. Diversity with fans and stuff, but the unity's there. They wanted him to take the penalty. He wasn't going to, and he makes it 3-0. For me, it was a game. One of those penalties where you run up and then he shoots, and then you've got. I thought it was a definite penalty. Chris, did you?
Oh yeah, the second one was even more stonewall than the first one.
Yeah,
it's a really odd challenge that who was it that made it? Christie
For
They're
Steve.
number 10. Yeah, it was a very, very bizarre challenge, but I kind of see it because I think what he was trying to do was run parallel to Erdegaard and just slide in and make the block, but he just got his angles wrong. And what happened is Erdegaard took the extra touch, and as a result, he just clattered into him. I mean, the first one, because of the angle of the TV and the way Eddie Nketiah is running, you don't know if Max Aarons has made the touch on the TV until you see it from a different angle. But that angle that we saw with the Erdegaard one, just again because of the body shape, you could just tell straight away that is a Stonewall penalty. And I think Arteta referenced it afterwards with regards to the leadership in the group, because they've said, do you know what, we need to give this to Kai. And he stepped up and took a really, really good penalty. He looked almost a bit sheepish when he ran towards the fans. It was almost a bit like, yeah, thanks, I've scored. Cheers, guys. So you can just tell, I don't know, there might be a confidence. There's definitely a confidence element there. His performance, I thought, was good. I don't think he was amazing. I don't think he was. It was almost like I like the way he glides across the surface, and he was retaining. He seemed to be retaining the ball well, and his pass, his sort of connectivity with the other midfielders and Saka's interplay was good from Kai Havertz. But you know, sometimes I've heard on other podcasts, and we've talked about when Bukayo Saka sometimes is playing within himself, he's playing in third gear, he still ends up getting goals and assists and things like that. But you can tell he's doing a 7 out of 10 performance, and he's just doing it just because he's just brilliant. Whereas that felt like Kai Havertz was doing that. But what we haven't seen is Kai Havertz absolutely smashing up the gaff. And I think that's the stuff that needs to happen. I don't know whether or not that's just his style, and we'll never see that though.
But nor did we with like Bergkamp or Henry or Perez. You know, everyone's different, aren't they? And I think someone put in the comments that I think his time at Chelsea's ruined him a little bit. So let's see. Look, none of us know what's going to happen. None of us are sitting there going, oh, he's going to be world class. And we don't know if he's going to fail. We just got to support him while we're while we're playing him, and he's an Arsenal player. That's what I think. But he's becoming a little bit in the media where they're talking about it. I noticed on Match of the Day last night, they brought up Havertz. And I'm like, leave it alone. Let us just get on with our jobs. Let him deal with it, because it's not easy. But it was lovely to see the fans singing a song, and it was just great. It was really good. So Cookie, you alluded to it before. It is in my notes. I've got a little bit frustrated yesterday as well. I kept thinking is it Tuesday night we're playing Lons or Wednesday? I can't remember. Tuesday night. We're 4-0 up. And even at 3-0, I would have taken him off. At 4-0 up, he starts to hobble. And I'm like, what is going on? Why do you think he does? I'm going to ask Anthony as well, being a coach, but why do you think he does this? He continues to play him when he should be coming off, when we had plenty on the bench as well, because Trossard was back, Reece Nelson, we've got ESR, we've got the players to bring on.
Well, he did it in the Spurs game as well, and I could kind of sympathise with him a little bit more in that game, because he is that one guy that, even if he's having an absolute stinker, can create something out of nothing. You know, even with a broken leg, you feel he could still put the ball top bins. That's how special of a player Bukayo Saka is. But I absolutely didn't understand it against Bournemouth when we've got these two massive games coming up. I think he went off, was it 70-something minutes? It might have even been later than that. But as soon as we got that penalty to make it 3-0, I absolutely would have taken him off there and then, especially when you've got Reece Nelson on the bench, who had a great game against Brentford midweek, especially when you've got Smith Rowe, who had a great game against Brentford, and looked good when he came on as well. You've got Trossard on the bench. You know, just do something. You have to mix it up a little bit, especially when you're in such a comfortable position. And, you know, our defence looks solid. Bournemouth are offering absolutely next to nothing. And you could argue that, okay, 3-0 in the Premier League, what once was a sure thing, it's not all the time. You know, we've seen 3-0 leads disappear.
Yeah.
But you would have thought, given how, this side is maturing, that was a very unlikely event to happen. So yeah, I was disappointed, especially when he has got so many options on the bench. Does it mean that he doesn't trust the likes of Reece Nelson fully? He doesn't trust Smith Rowe? Or is it a case of he's managing minutes with them? Because he did say after the Brentford game that he's not going to necessarily throw guys in that haven't played a lot of football in recent weeks. And you've got to remember, Smith Rowe, Reece Nelson barely kicked a ball this season. So maybe that was playing a part in it. But yeah, it wasn't just Saka. I mean, Declan Rice, I think, could have gone off a lot earlier. You could have even brought off William Saliba and brought Tomiyasu on. But the guys that, came off in the game, Eddie Nketiah and Zinchenko, who I think were the 2 substitutions, were the guys without injuries. So it doesn't really make much sense to me. I get the Zinchenko one, he's injury prone, but the others made no sense to me at all.
Go on, Ant. Do you want to say something?
The thing is with this, right, and the thing is with footballers, you got some players that love the game. They absolutely love the game. Now, Saka loves the game. He's the type of player that comes across when he's at home, he'll have a ball at his feet. It was the same with Declan when he was younger, when I had him as a 6-7-year-old. Declan's like a 7-year-old at Chelsea. You finish the session, Declan's still kicking the balls about. Come on, session's finished. No, he's still kicking the balls about. And it's the same with Saka. Saka, all these boys. And, I've played the game. I'm sure you've all played the game, where you don't actually want to come off. You're actually enjoying it. Although you're hobbling, you're actually enjoying the game. And a lot of this, with the sports science, they've got to put their hand up and say, yep, this is enough. Or, he'll say to Arteta when he feels that's enough, and he'll put his hand up, and I'm sure he'll be honest enough, because also he's got that quality about him, Saka. But there's that playground part to it where he wants to stay on the field. He wants to keep playing. He enjoys it. Yes, the longer term, I get it, the next game, and you've got to think ahead. And especially when you got like League Cup games coming up now against West Ham, you've got Champions League, got Premier League. Like, I get all that. I genuinely get it, because you need to manage it and manage their minutes. But when they're actually on the field playing, Declan played a part in nearly every game for West Ham last season, whether it was League Cup, Premier League, Europa Cup. Like, he wanted to play, and I get that same feeling with Saka. And I hope that can answer that question in some ways, because these Premier League footballers, yes, they're superstars, and they're treated like superstars, but those playground players like Saka just love the ball at their feet and want to stay on the pitch. And you can see it when he gets it. You're all so excited by him. I'm excited by him. And you want to keep him on the pitch, but at the same time, I get it. You lose him, then you lose a big part of your game. But I hope that can add to the conversation.
I just feel, and I get what you're saying, and there's certain players like Jesus would never want to come off the pitch either. I get that.
Yeah.
But it's not down to them. It's down to the manager.
Yeah.
It's down to them to manage it properly, because twice now at the end of games, he's looking like he's hobbling, and he's so precious to us. He's vital to us, that I think what Cookie and I are saying, it's quite, just get him off. And I understand we don't know what's going on. We don't know if he's doing it for a reason or anything. And I've always said this, we don't know of injuries. We don't know why he took Zinchenko off. Managing minutes, we don't know. And we're not with them all week, and I totally get that. And I've got big respect for that. But I'm watching the game, and I'm watching him hobble, Chris. Are you thinking the same thing or not?
Yeah, I mean, as Cookie said earlier, I think he was taken off on 76 minutes for Fabio Vieira. That should have really have been on 60 minutes. We scored the third goal, the penalty, on 53 minutes, 8 minutes after half time. And I don't know, maybe that's a bit extreme, because if Arteta's thinking he's fine, then I understand it. Like, he's keeping him on a little bit longer. He wants to play. Maybe he can make another impact. I don't know. He wants to keep him going. He wants to keep his engine ticking over. But personally, I would have at least have left it another 10 minutes earlier, 66, 65 minutes for me, because and it's the context, isn't it? Because he hadn't trained. So we're led to believe he hadn't trained all week, and so that context, and he missed the Brentford game because he had picked up a knock. So with that context, you have to just say, and even beforehand, if he says, look, if I have to bring you off, you need to just understand we're just trying to protect you because we've got some big games. We've got Man City in a week's time, and we don't know if he's going to be fit for that now.
Well, you say that, but I don't think he would have played against Brentford anyway, maybe on the bench. But forget Man City. We got a really tough away game at Lons on Tuesday night. That's absolutely massive. As I said that, it's just flashed up on my phone. It's so bizarre about Lons. So I think, and then we got this international break again. What the hell is going on with these international breaks? I don't want our players going away on international breaks. They just keep happening all the time. So yeah, no, I get that about Saka, and I get that about other players, but then we're 4-0, cruising. Nice to see ESR. Such a shame that he missed the goal by literally inches, wasn't it, Cooks?
It was a good save, though, wasn't it? I think
Yeah,
Neto
Neto.
just
I
got.
think he should have scored.
Yeah, no, I think he should have scored when you're in that
Yeah.
position. But credit to Neto as well. I mean, it was a good save, but put your foot through it and it probably goes in. But then he created that brilliant opportunity for himself a bit later on, didn't he? Which was another brilliant save by Neto. So I think aside from that, Smith Rowe was really good. And it just picked up from where he left off against Brentford. And although I think he looked a bit knackered, after the 30-minute mark, he's making things happen again, which I love to see. He's getting into goal-scoring opportunities. I really think he could rival Havertz and Vieira for that left 8 role. And although some may feel it's maybe a bit too soon, I definitely would be starting him on Tuesday night. I think, he's had a game against Brentford. He's had a good chunk of time yesterday. Now's the time to start him in an away game against Lens, which I think, is more than a match for him. So really pleased with his performance, even though he was only on the pitch about 15, 20 minutes. But it's great to see him back and firing for Arsenal.
Then the final whistle goes and our fans don't stop singing. We've just got the best fans. Best
You know what I
away
talk about
fans.
Benji White? Benny Blanco?
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, of course. I've gone 4-0 because we were talking about Saka. Yes. I know. And this is what I love about our team, where people keep going on and on about we need a number 9, we need the striker, we need to put the ball in the back of net, but we're all scoring. I know 2 were penalties, but we get a set piece. And talk us through it, Chris.
Yeah, it was a game was petering out really, and you could just tell that Bournemouth just wanted it to be ended. So we're getting into injury time, and it was a silly foul. It's one of those sort of fouls that players do at the end of the game where they're just like, oh, sake. It's one of those jobs, isn't it, where the players just sort of had a nick at Ødegaard. I know he had a nick at Vieira, and then Ødegaard's ball in was pretty good, but again, Bournemouth's heads have gone because the marking. I rewatched it again last night on Match of the Day. Ben White essentially just has the freedom of Bournemouth to flick that ball in. It was pretty shoddy defending, and I think they're how do you say Iriola? I think that's their manager. He even said afterwards like this was our worst game by far, and defensively they were all over the place.
I'm just going back to who we said we thought would be relegated. Chris, you and I have got Bournemouth in our predictions. Cookie, you don't have that. See, this is why the book is so good, isn't it?
Yeah, never forget.
Take the mickey about my little podcast book.
Again, it'd be interesting to get Anthony's views on this. My issue with Bournemouth, is that the way that he was setting up, and I believe they've done this all season. I think they played you early in the season, didn't they, Bournemouth? Was that the first game or something? And I don't know if he did the same against West Ham, but he pressed Arsenal really high, but it wasn't an organised press. It was like pressing in patches. And as soon as we broke that press, and actually Declan Rice being quite an important part of that, because what he does for us, which we've not had before, last season, Thomas Partey would break a press with his line passing, with his sort of verticality line passing, whereas Declan Rice breaks a press by literally just carrying the ball and taking it beyond his man, which I think is interesting and something different for us. But I just felt like they pressed in patches because there were times where we had the ball in defence and I could see 5 or 6 Bournemouth players chasing, but it wasn't coordinated. I'd be interested to get your take on whether you saw that as well against West Ham, whether that's a Bournemouth thing for this game, or do you think, and that's the reason why I guess for me, I think they're going to go down because they don't seem organised enough.
I mean, it's Chris, it's football suicide. If you don't press as a unit and there's distance between the packs when you're pressing, the amount of space you can pick up. When you talk about the players that you got in your side, like Rice, like Havertz, like Ødegaard, like Saka, like Jesus, if one of those players pick up a pocket and get himself on the half turn, as I said, it is complete football suicide because it has to be a managed press. And where the quality of player within the Bournemouth side is not of the quality of player Arsenal, tactically, it's got to be that astute that if you don't get your tactics right at this level, you get hurt. And like us, West Ham, I mean, we enjoyed it because the minute they come onto us, we enjoy that because we give away, we concede possession. If you look at our percentage possession against Brighton, I think we must have only had, I think it's about 18, 19%. But we like teams coming onto us because when they do that and we break the press and we get beyond them, obviously, Jarrod Bowen with the season that he's having, I mean, he's really been a standout player for us. If we can get Jarrod on the half turn, I mean, I'd like to actually keep hold of him come January, because, I mean, the way that he's actually playing, I mean, we had this conversation, I think, before when we were here, what West Ham player is actually going to step up, and we did actually say Bowen, and he's very much doing that. When we've got a passer like Ward-Prowse that can find him as well through that press, it's I mean, it hurts, and especially with, you know, when you're coming on and pressing the ball like they were with against you guys, when you got your Zinchenko's, your Whites, Salibas, Gabriels that are comfortable, and now Raya, when you can go back into Raya and he can break that press, he doesn't necessarily have to play into that defensive third. He'll bypass it and go into that middle third or the final third, because I think that's one thing Raya's got. If you look at his stats statistically, you know, his actual quality of passing and his ability to play out is second to none with Premier League goalkeepers. But yeah, Chris, I'm with you on that. I mean, when you press the ball, number one, you got to have the players to press it. You got to have the fitness for 90 minutes, and you most definitely have to be organised and structured. And against a side like Arsenal, if you don't press them and it's not structured accordingly, then you're going to get hurt. I mean, we hurt them, and we don't have the player and the personnel that Arsenal Football Club have.
It's definitely not looking good for Bournemouth, is it? You know, they've got to start winning. I think they've got 3 of the lower teams to play next month, and they were saying if he doesn't win against them, then they're going to be in trouble. So up steps Benny White with a nice header, and we're 4-0. And there's no stressing going on. Everything's great. There's nothing to discuss referee-wise, VAR-wise. Which was fantastic. Famous last words, because once our match had ended, then Tottenham kicked off against Liverpool. And as much as we need a draw would have been a good result, I think most Arsenal fans still would have liked Liverpool to have put 6 past Tottenham. And then, you know, I mean, I don't even know where to start, to be honest. And one of the things that I keep asking that no one is answering, and maybe someone can answer this, I keep asking it all over social media, is we know what happened. Everybody in the chat room, we're going to just talk a little bit about VAR now. And we can talk about the fact that they didn't draw the lines against Brentford for us as well and apologise. I keep asking the same question. Are the VAR officials not watching the whole game? Because if they're watching the whole game, they would have seen the linesman put the flag up against Diaz and the referee disallow the goal. It goes to VAR. I remember Gary Neville, I'm sure he said, that was a very quick decision. Oh, on we go. It's offside. And we just played on. And I remember sitting there going, that looked onside to me. Oh, carried on. If they're not watching the game, what are they doing? Does anyone know? Because if they're watching the game like us, we've seen that it's been flagged for offside. Now, surely to cut any issues that may happen, misunderstandings, instead of saying check complete, why have they not should say goal stands, goal disallowed, whatever it is? Because this is where it's all gone wrong. And I actually cannot believe in 2023 we are discussing this about the game we love. For me, and I've said it since day one, I didn't want VAR. I still don't want VAR. And everyone can say to me the same thing. It's not VAR, it's the officials behind it. Well, the officials behind it are VAR. So I don't want it. It's ruining the game. We can't enjoy goals anymore. You have to worry about whether we've got to sit in the stadium and look at the screen and go, it's gone to VAR for another check. It's ruining the game. People can make errors. We're not robots. I totally get it. I used to get, frustrated with referees on the pitch. But I think it needs to go back to that, Chris. Get rid of it. Go back to how it was. Stop these ridiculous laws every season. They're changing that I'm lost about now. I don't even know if handball has to be intentional. I don't know anything anymore. And it's ruining the game.
I'm going to let Cookie go first on this one because he's been a bit quiet and I feel like he's probably seasoned and ready to explode. But
he's ranting.
Good luck with this one, Cookie, by the way. All the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where do I start with this? I mean, well, in answer to your rhetorical question, Amanda, I don't think they are watching the game because it's come out that they actually believed it was given as a goal. the guys behind VAR. So the reason the check was so brief is because they've just gone and looked at it and thought, oh yeah, that's they've drawn the lines very quickly. Yep, it's a goal. But what they haven't realised is it's been flagged for offside. And even though there's that momentary lapse between them saying check complete and the ball being kicked again for the offside decision, once the ball's been kicked, they can't go and reverse it. But even in that split second, surely someone has to intervene, because there'll be multiple officials in that VAR room, and every single one is watching what is about to unfold, and it's just unbelievable. Like, it's so bad, and it's very rare that I'll be saying I sympathise with Liverpool, because we all know that we were on the back end of one of these last season. We've been on the back end of so many poor VAR calls, going all the way back to that David Luiz one at Wolves, which still sticks in my mind. But it was Brentford last season, where they scored from an offside position, which was blatantly offside as well. And how many times have the PGMOL come out and said that they're making an apology? It's absolutely disgraceful. And I think the Premier League is one of the only leagues across Europe to have said no to the automatic offside technology. And that just says it all, really, that they've got so much trust in these guys that just can't deliver in a professional capacity. So yeah, it's just unbelievably.
But what are they watching, Cookie? What are they doing? That's his thing. So a few of my Scouse mates, of course, are absolutely livid. I totally get it. What are they doing? Because they're convinced they were watching the Ryder Cup. They were absolutely convinced. Look, no one can prove anything. But I don't get it, because no one can answer that, Anne. No one can say to me, VAR officials watch the whole game. No one is answering the question I'm asking, because like us, we're watching the game. We've seen it flagged for offside. Look, human error happens, and I get it. And this is why I think I'm not so hot on referees as much as I used to be, because they see a split second. We go to the sending off as well. I thought it was a sending off. I did, Liverpool player. I thought it was a sending off. When I saw it again and again, I thought, oh, that, if that had been Xhaka, it'd have been off, and that's how I sort of view things. But when the ref was called to the screen, they showed him one still at the end with the foot on the ankle. So it's a blatant red. But when you actually watch the whole build up, it doesn't look like a red. So why have they only shown him a little part? So I know you can't answer this, Anne. I understand that. But this is the frustration of football fans in a ground that have paid good money to travel up and down the country to watch their teams. And let me just say here now, I'm not saying this is only Arsenal. This is across the board. I've seen so many bad decisions. Wolves against United. I mean, just so many. It's not working. And we need VAR for VAR. But the other point is, once they realise their mistake, the law of the game is, because it's kicked off, they can't bring it back. Well, do you know what? You've ruined that game, because Liverpool might have gone on to win. They might not have had a player sent off. So bring it back. So say to the ref in the ear, you need to stop this game right now. That is a goal. They've panicked because they must have told their bosses at the PGMOL, because that statement came out minutes after the final whistle.
I've seen a couple this season. I mean, I remember when West Ham went to Luton, and we went to Luton, and it's a tough game in itself, going to Luton, and it was 2-1 going into the last couple of minutes. Ball's come over, and it's hit Ward-Prowse's hand. He's taken the momentum off the ball. It was going to go to a Luton player. No penalty. Every single West Ham fan that was watching that game was literally, because we all thought this is going to be a penalty, 2-2 Luton, because it was that obvious. Because you're watching the game, you see the momentum of the game, because every team has spells within a game of football, and you get that pressure on the opposition, and you get that feel, don't you, that a goal's coming or there's a chance coming. You just get that feeling. And there was Nottingham Forest against Brentford today. Second yellow card, red card, VAR. It was a red card. They got it right. But there were two decisions in that game today that, for me, on Bolly, that could have been penalties for Brentford. And I haven't listened to Thomas Frank, And I haven't listened to any interviews after, but I'm sure we'll see something on social media or something, because he'll feel quite aggrieved because Bolly's gone out and blocked one and they went, no, they can't give that one. Well, the ball's going in the goal and it's hit his arm. So that's not an official part of the body, and his arm's out here. And the second one was from a long throw in the first half, and it's come up and stopped the momentum of the ball. So it's just the messaging of it. Like, as a coach, and as a manager, so Arteta wants the message right across the board to get the right environment with his football team. Everyone's got to be on the same page, right? So everyone's got to be on the same page to make it work. As an academy manager within an academy, you've got to be on the same page to make it work. All the staff, all the players have got to be buying into it. This VAR and this whole officiating part seems to be... I was watching Sky Sports News the other week, and I think it was Mike Dean in the studio. Mike Dean's given the penalty, and Mike Dean didn't give the goal, yet the VAR gave the goal. So there's a complete imbalance with what message is being given off at the moment within VAR, which is causing frustration for fans, players, managers, because it's costing points and costing results and big moments in games. It's affecting them.
It's affecting fans as well. It's like, I just want to say one thing as well. I don't think you should have it for something subjective. I could sit here and go, that was a red card. Chris might go, it's not. Neither of us are right or wrong, because it's an opinion. There's not fact. Factual is whether it's over the line, over the goal line. I mean, factual offside should be easy. But even if they're not even drawing lines properly, sometimes they don't even draw the lines. And I just think you are ruining this game. And people keep saying the same thing in the comments. It's not VAR, it's the officials. We don't have the proper officials to run it. I'm assuming in Italy, where it all runs well, that they've got proper officials. We don't. Get rid.
I've got a couple of bits. We should probably move on from this, but I just want to stick my oar in just for a second or two. Let's have some props to Big Ange, mate, Big Ange, and his last week saying, "Oh, I don't even know what's a handball anymore, mate." It's like Romero's got his arm out like this, and the ball is going into the goal, and it hits his arm. Why are you? What are the referees supposed? What is anyone supposed to do with that? It's exactly the point Anthony just made. If I'm standing like that and the ball hits my chest square on, it hits my chest, and there's nothing between the ball and the goal, fine. But you can't stand like that and have the ball hit. It doesn't matter what team, but the ball hits somebody's arm, because if it doesn't hit his arm, it's a goal. So you can't turn around and say, "Oh, well, it was accidental on its way to a goal. It just happened to be his arm there."
Completely agreed. Completely agreed.
Load of rubbish. So that's the first bit. The second part, and this is where we're going to get sinister. So how about this? I don't understand. I'm talking about Tottenham yesterday, the Tottenham game yesterday, because the argument was that the on-field team said offside, checking it, and the Stockley Park team thought that they'd said the goal is allowed, and so that's when they say check complete. Okay, fine. There's a mistake there. We can talk then about, you've got a few minutes or at least a minute or so, as Tottenham are setting up with a goal kick or whatever it was, or free kick, in which they could say, hang on a second, we need to stop that. The next argument was, but once the ball's kicked and it's in play, that's you're onto the next pass. I mean, that's rubbish in itself, but you're onto the next passage, and so that's why they couldn't do anything. So here's the sinister bit. If they then knew, and if they were in Stockley Park then, after that, going, "Oh, sugar, we've ballsed up here because, that should have been a goal." That was on like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. There is a whole hour for them to be able to create a statement, to be ready to go with it. It took them 30 minutes after the final whistle before they actually said, "This is our statement." And Sky Sports were even saying it afterwards, because I was watching, I was saying, "Yeah, we're still waiting on the PGMOL to give us a statement." If they've had an hour to prepare for this during the game where they knew it was a mistake, why has it taken half an hour afterwards for them to actually issue that? To me, that says somebody in Stockley Park has made a mistake and they're trying to cover their tracks. That's the sinister conspiracy theory. The reason it took 30 minutes is because that's probably not true and they're just making it up. They are making up the, oh, yes, we thought that he was talking about it as a goal, and so that's why we said check complete. I think they're covering their own tracks.
Oh, I'm not sure. I think maybe they set a time for it to come out. I don't know. It was pretty quick after, Chris, but it's tough, isn't it? Because what, half an hour? I think that's pretty quick. I was
they've been
shocked.
waiting. But the incident happened before half time.
Absolutely,
So
but they can't do it during the match because there'd have been anarchy at the ground.
But you can get everything prepared so that literally straight away afterwards you're able to say, "We know there was a mistake. Look, this happened. This is the process."
Yeah, but I don't think 30 minutes is that long. I mean, we've heard them like hours later, but all I'm saying is I don't know if it's corrupt. I just think they're inept. I just think it's got worse. And then you find out that they've been in Saudi the last few days doing VAR over there. Should they be able to do that? And then we find out that they've been stepped down for a couple of matches. I'm sorry. I know, and I've never want anyone to lose their jobs. Absolutely not. But what's going to happen after the next weekend? So they'll come back after international break, be back on someone else's game. And all right, if you learn by your mistakes, fine. We're all entitled to make them. I totally get it. But that's a massive mistake. And that is something that I don't feel warrants just a couple of games off, Cookie. Do you?
I mean, for me, if you're asking me, I would want the entire PGMOL just blown up and started again, to be quite honest with you, because I just think, the old boys that are still there, they're now the ones that are in charge of it. You've got someone like Howard Webb, who was a controversial referee at best, heading up the thing. And, there's just like an all boys club, really, at times, when you look at, Mike Dean saying that at one point in the VAR decision, he was looking out for his mate and he didn't want to stick him in it. I mean, what are we talking about here? That's absolutely laughable. We're talking about the highest level of professional football, the highest level of officiating, and you're making decisions that wouldn't even be acceptable at Sunday League. So yeah, it's unbelievable. And I just think the new boys that are coming through as well are as bad as the old ones, if not worse. Some of these guys that have started in the past season or two just seem to be absolutely horrendous. And when you look at I don't think the officiating in our PSV game was absolutely immaculate, but the game just flowed a hell of a lot quicker. So I'd really like to see more foreign referees introduced. I haven't really got any issue with that. I don't think anyone would if it would improve the quality of the officiating. So yeah, I think it would be great to just see the whole thing just torn down and built up again, or at least more levels of qualification to become a referee put in place. But at the minute it's just a shambles.
It's a shit show, as they say. Right, let's get to
the
questions.
What Imara tells us. Are we doing what Imara tells us?
Ref suck, VAR sucks. Let's move on. Exactly what I just said. We're now going to get to the questions, and we're going to get some for Ant, I hope. So, Christopher, my admin person today.
Yes, lovely assistant. Starting off with how good was Declan Rice against Bournemouth? I'll start, but then lead into that, if that's all right, because I sort of touched on it earlier. What I thought was really interesting, which he delivers, and I feel like I saw this a little bit because I watched West Ham because of my family connections. I watch them a little bit more than other teams. So last season, I watched this a few times. The way he travels with the ball is something that we have never had before. We've been a team that will move the ball from back to front quickly by passing, and we still do that. But to then have that additional golf club in our kit bag, is fantastic. Invoking a little bit of Ryder Cup there, given the Europeans won today. Just want to get your take on that as a player and the way that he can then literally just go through. It goes from like first to third gear, 0 to 60 so quickly.
When I first come on the show, I don't know if you can remember, Amanda, I said about Vieira when he signed for Arsenal. And I remember Pat Vieira, his ability to travel with the ball and influence games with and without it. Deck is exceptional. I mean, if you look at the way that he played last season, and we forget his age, he's still a young man as well, and he skippered West Ham last season, and it's a slightly offset point, which I'll then revisit. But obviously Arsenal had their experience of a run in last year with this young group. Declan had an experience of trying to stay up as a captain with West Ham, playing every game. And he had the influence of like a Steven Gerrard, if you like, did for Liverpool, where time and time again he'd produce with and without the ball, and he'd do these things in games. And some of the things Declan did in games was actually quite underappreciated because he wasn't in a side that are a front foot side like Arsenal right now, you know. And I don't even think you still haven't seen the best of him. There's still more to come because he travels with the ball. But I remember saying something before about his ability to strike the ball and connect with the ball and get shots off and his end productivity. Expect more because there's more to come, and that's not putting pressure on the young man, but I've seen it with my own eyes working with him as a youngster coming through, the way he strikes the ball, the way he receives the ball. Even, you know, when he scored against, was Newcastle, was it? No, Man United late on, when he scored his goal against Man United and he took it down and then he struck through the ball. You know, there's more to come from him. And there was a goal he scored in Europe for West Ham when he drove the length of the field and put one away last year. And I can't remember the game offhand. But when you work with a lad and see it from a young age, and then you see it now coming off in the games that have so much pressure and value, it's an unbelievable feeling. It really is. And not just that, but it must be for his family, for him, but there's so much more to come. And that's not putting pressure on him, because I know there's a lot of Arsenal fans that watch this and everyone's delighted. But yeah, you see him travelling with the ball, but wait, there's more.
Yeah,
there's more to his game. You know, there really is more.
So actually, second question then for you, Anthony, and then probably Cookie, you might want to answer this as well. 6 or an 8? This is from Carl. Is he better as a 6 or an 8?
It's a good question. So, you know, I think as well, without, you know, I'll go into a bit of depth with it. You know, at Chelsea, when they were being developed as youngsters, big believers within the academy to play in different positions. So they'd play everywhere. You know, Declan would be at the back one week, he'd go up front, he'd go midfield. Big believers of coverage all over the field. Now, with Declan, I always liked him in that role in front of the back four for West Ham. I thought he'd protect. He had those natural instincts as a centre half where he could snap out danger, and he puts out fires before they're lit. But I'd like to see him a little bit more in advance, because I think with his energy to go and press. I remember when we played actually Arsenal at the London Stadium last year and we were 2-0 down. And I think Saka missed that penalty just after half time. And that could have been game over. But it was actually Declan's front foot energy that changed that game and got us something out of that game, with his ability just to go and press from the front, go and nick balls, go. You know, if you've got that in and around you for 90 minutes, pressing, you're nicking, but no one wants to play against that. And then you couple with that with the ability with then dealing with a football, you're talking about a top world midfield player. Which, you know, as I said, his growth, you'll see more over the coming months and going into the new year. But I'd like to see him, the answer to that, I'd like to see him a little bit more in advance.
Cookie?
I think we spoke about it, Anthony, when we did the show before. And I asked you that exact question, whether he would be suited to the 6 or the 8. And I think what we've seen from him so far at Arsenal is when Partey was in the side, even though he was playing that inverted right back role, it did allow Rice to get that bit more up the field. But even though that happens, we've not really seen him truly in a role where he is maybe beyond the halfway line for the majority of the game. And I think in these games where we play against the likes of Bournemouth, because we're so on the front foot, it doesn't matter that he's kind of listed on the team sheet as a defensive midfielder, because he's going to press from the front anyway, like you just alluded to there, especially when he played against us last season and won that ball off Thomas Partey to get the goal for West Ham. So I think in time, I really hope he develops into that left 8 role, because I think he's got all the attributes to be one of the best, if he's not already there, the best box-to-box midfielder in the Premier League, if not European football, if not world football. I mean, he's such a good player.
Right.
His explosiveness of getting forwards, his runs from deep, and some of the finishes he's got on him. I mean, I know some Arsenal fans might look at a midfield of Partey, Rice and Ødegaard as maybe a little bit too conservative, but I don't view it that way at all. I think Declan Rice has got all the attributes to add numbers to his game. If you've got Granit Xhaka getting 7 goals, 7 assists last season in this system, Declan Rice can easily get double figures, I think. It might not happen this season. I don't think it will, because I still think we're going to see him play in that 6th role. But I think next season, if we can bring in, a top draw defensive midfielder to allow Declan to go and play his game a bit further up the pitch and not have to worry too much about defending, which he'll still do naturally because it's part of his game. But I think he could really, really be, like I say, an unbelievable box-to-box midfielder.
Okay. I think one of the things that you did say, Anthony, was about his scoring. Do you remember Al said to you, I'd like to see him score more? And you said because he won't be so defensive with Arsenal, he probably will go on to score more.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, one thing I don't want to be is too negative about West Ham. We're playing a style at the moment, and fair play to Moyes. He's getting results. So credit to him, and we lifted a European trophy last season. But Declan's role was very much in his own half. Like you were just saying, Chris. And it was in his own half. He's playing in front of a back four, of which his game is so limited because you're looking to try and counter on the other team. And at times last year, when he broke beyond without passing it, and he just broke beyond that line, it was frightening. It was frightening, just the power and the drive that the boy has to just want to win and succeed. And it's not just with that, but it's like everything in life that he wants to. He probably should have played 50, 60 minutes the other day, but he played 80. Played 80 because he wants to win, and because he wants to, you've already seen the way he is with the Arsenal fans, when he scored his goal and how passionate he is, wears his heart on his sleeve, but when you got a boy like that willing to really die for the shirt, which he is.
Oh,
more and more.
There we go. Don't touch anything.
Yeah, I wondered what happened then. I thought that was me again. I thought I'd gone missing. I thought that was me with the screen then. But yeah, he'll add goals. And Cook, it's a really good point. What you said, if you were to add to your group in the summer, because it's a forever growing group, your Arsenal group, and I'm sure Arteta might even do some smart business in January. But if we were to see him, which it is such a front foot side where you're pressing and you're seeing him higher up the field, you might not see him as high against your Manchester Cities. I was trying to think who I was going to bring in there as a third challenger, but it's between Man City and Arsenal for me. But in the bigger games, you won't see him as in advance, when actually you'd like to see him more in advance, because as a coach and someone working with him, you know what he can do. One thing I always said to him was, I'd like to see him more on free kicks. I'd like to see him more on set plays, because he doesn't give his ball striking the credit it actually deserves. But then you see Ødegaard's delivery for the goal for Ben White yesterday. He's got fantastic delivery, hasn't he?
He was on corners yesterday, though.
But he scored against United on a corner, didn't he, Rice?
Yeah, but you get him 20, 25 yards out, he's one of the cleanest ball strikers you'll work with. And when I say cleanest ball strikers, I'm talking laces, I'm talking he can wrap it with his inside, he can go off his opposite foot, he can use the outside of his boot, he can use all those different surfaces, which I hope Arsenal fans get the opportunity to see. I'm going to call it, you'll see a stunner before the end of December.
Oh,
that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Do you
No pressure, Dick.
What's interesting? I saw something today. We'll move on to another questions away from Declan Rice in a second. But I saw something on Twitter today where somebody had said, "It's funny how the media, no one's talking about that £105 million price tag anymore. I wonder why that is. I mean, he's already showing the value that he is." He's putting in. He's just given us something completely different. Anthony was just talking there about Arteta and what does he do in January. So just this is a segue into it. cheeky bid for Ivan Toney in January. We've sort of touched on some of these, so let's make it a quick one. Cookie, and then Amanda, and then there's another one which Carl also said, which is linked to that.
Well, I'll go with the Ivan Toney.
Should we sign Ivan Toney?
100% yes. Cooks?
Maybe. And the reason I say that is because I think he would be a great alternative to Gabriel Jesus because he's such a different type of striker. But if there's a sneaky chance we can get Victor Osimhen, I would much rather we put that money towards potentially signing him, even though I think it's ambitious. But, you know, how old's Ivan Toney? 27, maybe coming up to 28 soon. 80 million quid for someone that, you know, might last 3-4 seasons when you've got Osimhen, who's a bit younger. At the absolute peak of his powers, I'd be very inclined to put the money towards someone like him.
Yeah, 100%. I need to drop in a second, but I'm going to pop up this question again, another one from Carl. It's a bit of a segue onto, I guess, into the previewy type stuff, which is who should be starting against Lens. I'm going to answer it first, and then I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of the lovely peeps.
Can you just tell me what you think the prediction for Lons is going to be?
I think we're going to beat them 2-0. And when we were talking earlier and you said Lons is a difficult game, let's bear in mind they're 15th out of 18th in the French league. They've won 2 games, lost 4. They've scored 7 goals this season in 7 matches, and they've conceded 12. They've also lost, I think it's Openda, who was the guy he was on the football. If anyone saw that Sky Sports transfer deadline day show, which was really interesting, he was one of the guys on that as a profiled player. So they've lost him. I think he went to Leipzig. So he was one of their main goal threats. So I personally, just as I wrap up, would go for quite a fair bit of rotation, which I'm probably going to get absolute pelters for in the chats. But Ramsdale in goal, Ben White right back, Tomiyasu centre half with Kivior, Zinchenko left back, Jorginho in the hole. We need to protect Rice if he's had a knock. We want to protect him for City. Vieira instead of Ødegaard. I'd play Havertz or Emil Smith-Rowe as the left 8. I'd play Nelson instead of Saka. Don't want him near the team. I want him rested up for Man City. Eddie and Nketiah up top because I think we want to play Jesus against Man City. And I'd either play Trossard or Emil Smith-Rowe. So I'd go mega rotation. It won't happen, but that's what I'd do. And on that note, I'll thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone in the chat. Appreciate everyone's time. I'll leave you in Amanda, Cookie and Anthony's capable hands.
Goodbye, Christopher.
Bye, mate. What's that comment referencing to? I can't even think.
I think about that player. I can't even say Osimhen.
Osimhen, yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Why not?
Right, so I will start with some questions. So, Anthony, let's just talk about this because you've got a massive rivalry with Spurs as much as we have. Are Spurs any good, or is this just another false dawn?
Do you know what? I saw their gaffer when he was obviously manager of Celtic, and I said then that the style of play, I liked it. It was front foot. It was attractive. It was energised. I know Arsenal fans won't like me saying this, but you know it's a different brand. It's a different type of manager that they've got in this year. I mean, if you take your Contes, your Mourinho's, very slow build-up play, very patient, very defensive-minded. You know, this manager's different. You know, he's getting the best out of Son, Richarlison. You know, they're a team of which I think they won't. I don't think they'll threaten the top 4. I think they're a better Spurs side. I think they'll probably be around 5th, 6th this season, just outside it. But I think Spurs fans will see more attractive football, definitely better on the eye than what they did. I know quite a few Spurs fans that were so frustrated, especially over the last 2 seasons, how slow the build-up play and how backwards and sideways it's been. But it's more front foot. You know, they're looking to play more attractive stuff. But for me, they'll finish 5th or 6th this season. They won't have the same as those bigger hitters in the division. In my opinion.
I think that when Harry Kane left, that was the best thing that happened to them, and I'd been saying that for a couple of seasons. And I think they're going to do a little bit better than that. I'm maybe 4th for me. What about you, Cookie?
I think it'd be interesting to see how the season plays out. I mean, like you, I think them losing Harry Kane galvanised them in a way. I like the new guy that's come in. I really like the new brand of football they're playing, but that's as much praise as I can give Spurs, unfortunately. I think it'll be interesting to see how they
That was
do.
generous, even that.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting ahead of myself.
surprised.
I'm getting ahead of myself. Thank you for chirping in and stopping me there whilst I was getting ahead of myself. It'd be interesting to see how they do when they get a few injuries. An injury to Son, an injury to Maddison. I'm not quite sure how they would do in that situation. I think you saw when they played us at the Emirates the other week when Son and Maddison came off, they didn't really have much attacking potency going forward. So, yeah, I definitely think they're heading in the right direction, as much as it pains me to say, but I'm not sure they're necessarily going to push the top four just yet. But, it's early on in the season. Anything can happen. Be interested to see how it plays out for them.
Simon Lester's got a good point. Spurs' signal position could depend on how poor United and Chelsea continue to be. That could be an issue as well. Liverpool definitely look much better this season, though. We're going to do a couple more questions and then we'll get you out of here. Right, okay, from John Rowe. John says, so what does the panel think Arteta has Keir to do in midfield? Hold, press, forward. So let's give him credit as he hasn't been on the losing side so far. That's true. We haven't lost a game yet. Touch wood.
Does that mean Kai?
Yeah, Kai Havertz.
Right.
I would think, yes.
Yeah.
And you can answer that one.
Go on. Sorry, I missed that. That cut out that bit. I do apologise, Amanda.
That's all right. So what does the panel think Arteta has asked Kai Havertz to do in midfield? Hold, press, forward, etc. What do you think he's asking him to do?
I mean, I haven't seen it enough to know how he's playing Kai, to be honest, this year. I mean, I watched Havertz last season in the Champions League for Chelsea against Real Madrid, and one thing was evident was his quality with the ball, but one thing that was questionable was what he did without it, and that's what the fans were asking there. I can't really give an opinion on how he's been this year for Arsenal because I haven't seen enough of him. So I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that.
Cookie, quickly, because we've only got a few minutes left. What do you think? Hold,
I think he's asking to win the ball high up and get into those positions that Xhaka was finding himself in a lot last season. If you look at him and analyze just him specifically in a moment of a game, you'll see that he when we're out of possession, he's trying to win the ball quite high up the pitch. And in credit to him, he does do that quite often. And just winning the ball high up can cause absolute chaos. So I think that's a big part of his role, but also making those runs into the box, being that late arriver into the box, sort of Aaron Ramsey-esque. But he's just not finding himself on the end of those opportunities. But I think it's very simple, his role, to be quite honest, although I'm making it sound a lot more simplistic than it probably actually is. But just look at what Xhaka was doing last season. We just need someone that can do that, but with more end products. But the problem with Kai Havertz is he doesn't have that defensive acumen that Granit Xhaka had. You're not going to see him busting a gut to get back and make a last-ditch tackle like Xhaka did against Newcastle last season. But he has all the capabilities to score, twice as many goals as someone like Xhaka did. So it's just getting those goals and assists out of him, which is proving to be the tricky bit at the minute. But touch wood, yesterday was the start of a flurry of goals and assists for him.
It'd be good, wouldn't it? Okay, let's just talk about our upcoming match. Cookie, who should be starting against Lens? Thank you, Carl, for all your questions, by the way.
I'm not going to give my full 11 because I'm conscious in 24 hours or less, we've got a preview show coming out. So I'm not going to do that. I will say tune in tomorrow night, 6:15 p.m, but we'll be going through the full lineup. But there's I definitely wouldn't be going as heavy on the rotation as Chris would be. I mean, this is a Champions League game and it's still early. I think if we were to drop points against Lens, especially given where they are in the French division at the minute, strike whilst the iron is hot, hit them whilst they're down, and get a good win, and then bring the big boys off, similarly to how we did against PSV. If there's one player that I would be inclined to omit, maybe it'd be Bukayo Saka, just because we have got that game next week, and if we're struggling, you've always got the option to bring him on if he's okay to play this game. But I would probably start Fabio Vieira on that right-hand side, and I'd like to see Smith Rowe start in midfield. Apart from that, I'd be looking at a very similar team to what played at the weekend, with the exception of maybe you know, Tomiyasu and Kivior were brilliant against Brentford. Like, they were absolutely brilliant in that game. So I've not got too much issue with them coming in. Maybe Kivior in place of Zinchenko, maybe Tomiyasu in place of Saliba. But I think Ben White's just going to be one of those guys that
But
plays
they
every
need to
single game.
tune into your show tomorrow evening at 6:15 for the full preview of Lons. And then are you back Thursday post Lons preview City? When are you back? Because we've got a massive game. Because Carl said, should we rest players for midweek Champions League match to protect them for the City game at the weekend? So, Anne, when you got a European game midweek away from home, I think it's going to be tougher than Chris was sort of alluding to. However, we've got City next Sunday. We don't do well against City. It would be nice to at least get a draw, but I'm conscious that Rodri's out and they've lost 2 on the bounce, one in the Premier League and one in the League Cup. Are they going to be a different animal next Sunday at the Emirates?
You know what? A little bit on your selection. I'm with Cookie on it that, you know, when you've got momentum, you touch wood, you haven't been beaten so far this year. You're winning games of football. You're not getting beat. It's about going and winning that game against Lons and trying to win it in 60 minutes and then making your changes and maintaining that momentum because, you know, again, it was something said to me growing up, momentum's so key in football. And if you are to go there and you go and get a draw or you go and get beat 2-1, that can change your mindset going into the Manchester City game when actually mindset is everything. So going and winning that game and making maybe 1 or 2 changes and then winning it in 60, 65 minutes and then making your changes, I think is imperative. But one thing with Manchester City is that, as I said before, they haven't hit full flow yet. You won't see the best Manchester City until probably the turn of the new year. You know, there'll be no Rodri. Obviously, they've got no Bernardo Silva, no Kevin De Bruyne. I think they'll be coming back in the new year. You'll see the best Manchester City then. They're not actually playing as well as what they did last year, yet they're picking up wins. But there are a couple of little chinks in their armour, obviously getting beat by Wolves at the weekend. They got knocked out of the League Cup. You know, it's important that you guys now, for me, are in fantastic form come to the end of the new year, and that'll be your best opportunity winning the league. But it's all down to momentum and winning games, you know. And even when you're not performing well, getting results. Like you all said on here that it didn't play particularly or haven't played particularly well, but it clicked against Bournemouth. And I mentioned before, my dad said that year when he won it with Blackburn, it probably clicked 7 to 10 times and they performed well. The rest of the time they got results and caused a massive upset by winning the Premier League. So, you know, it's all about momentum and, you know, going and beating Lons and then starting strongly and positively on the front foot against Manchester City. You already beat them in the Charity Shield as well. But I think beating them actually now in a competitive game at this stage of the season is extremely important for your season. If you can go and lay a glove on them and beat them, it really could be the making of your season.
It's going to be absolutely electric at the Emirates next Sunday afternoon. We just need to keep everyone fit, bring and also get some of our injuries fit because it's gone very quiet on Partey and Martinelli as well. But we haven't lost this season. I'm not with the boys on that, Anne. I think we have clicked. I think we can step up a gear, but I do think we've clicked. We have been nearly an hour and 20 minutes. I'm so thankful for everyone staying with us in the chat room. We normally do an hour, but we could talk to you for so long, Anthony. Honestly, it's just
Thank you.
been fantastic. And again, we'd love you to come back in a couple of months. You can be like our resident coach. It's so fascinating listening to you. He's like our resident,
My pleasure.
same old Arsenal coach. Cookie, tomorrow evening, you are back at 6:15 with the other James. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct. 6:15, we'll be taking a look ahead to Lons in the Champions League on Tuesday. And then I think it'll either be Wednesday or Thursday. We'll be taking a look back at that game and doing a little preview for the big one next Sunday.
Fab. All right, everybody in the chat room, thank you so much for your questions. Please give a massive thank you to Anthony for just his time and the fact that he's been keen to come back. We've loved you. I love you being on here. It's really fascinating to hear from a coach's perspective because I realised over the years that, you know, when you're screaming at the referee, at the manager to bring on a player and they're not, and I learned quite a lot over the years that there are reasons managers don't bring on players or take off players. So it's fascinating. Thank you for your time. Really, really
Thanks for
appreciate
having me.
it.
Thanks for
You
having
are
me.
so welcome, honestly. Cookie, good night. Everybody in the chat room, thank you so much. Everyone on audio, please rate us. Please subscribe to everybody. Cookie's going to be back tomorrow evening. I'm going to be back tomorrow week when we do our post game of City after we've been to the Emirates. I'm already stressed about it, but we need to concentrate on Lons first. Thank you to everybody that watches all the time. We really appreciate it, and all your comments. And remember, always Arsenal. Always Arsenal. Thanks, everyone. Good night.